The lights of America's Got Talent stage were glowing brighter than ever that night. The crowd was buzzing with excitement, whispering about who might perform next. The judges were ready. Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Heidi Klum, and Howie Mandel were seated, waiting for the next act. And then, from the shadows of the backstage, a humble young man from the Philippines walked forward. His name, Miguel Santos. Miguel had never been to America before. He came from a small town in Davao, where the sound of the sea mixed with the melodies of his father's old guitar. He had grown up listening to the legendary Freddie Aguilar, the man whose song, Anak, became the anthem of every Filipino family. Miguel's father would sit under the stars, strumming that song, and tell him, "One day, son, the world will hear your voice too." But life was never easy. Miguel lost his father when he was only 16. His mother worked 2 jobs to keep the family together. There were nights when they didn't have much to eat, but Miguel always had music. He sang in the small church every Sunday, played his father's guitar at weddings, and performed at local bars just to earn a few pesos to help his family. Years later, when a talent scout visited Davao and heard Miguel sing, everything changed. The scout told him, "You belong on a world stage." Miguel laughed at first. He didn't believe it, but something inside him whispered, maybe, just maybe, this was his time. And so, with his mother's blessings, a borrowed guitar, and a dream bigger than his fears, Miguel took a flight to Los Angeles to audition for America's Got Talent. The stage was silent as he walked in. Simon looked up and asked in his usual sharp tone, "Hello. What's your name, and where are you from?" Miguel smiled nervously. "My name is Miguel Santos, and I'm from the Philippines." The crowd cheered the moment he said it. The Filipino pride filled the room. Simon raised an eyebrow. "The Philippines, huh? We've had some amazing singers from there. What will you be singing for us tonight?" Miguel took a deep breath. "I'll be singing my own version of Anak, a song by Freddie Aguilar, but I've arranged it with a little bit of myself in it." Simon leaned back. "That's a big song to take on. Let's hear it." Miguel looked at the ceiling lights, whispered a prayer under his breath, and began. The first note of his guitar was soft and haunting. His voice entered, low, emotional, trembling slightly but full of soul. Every word carried the weight of his story, the pain of his struggles, and the love of his family. The melody flowed across the theater like wind over water. People began to fall silent. The whispers stopped. Even Simon's expression changed, from skepticism to awe. Miguel's voice grew stronger as the song built. He mixed English and Tagalog in perfect harmony, creating something that felt new yet deeply familiar. The music rose like a wave, and by the time he reached the final chorus, people were crying. Some in the audience held their hands to their hearts. Sofia Vergara wiped a tear from her eye. As the last note faded, the theater exploded into applause. The crowd stood up, screaming his name, clapping, cheering. Miguel's hands were shaking. He couldn't believe what just happened. Simon stood slowly, his eyes locked on Miguel, and in that rare moment of silence, he said, "Miguel, that was absolutely beautiful. You didn't just sing that song, you lived it. And I'm going to say something I never thought I'd say, you're better than Freddie Aguilar." The crowd gasped. People couldn't believe what they heard. Miguel covered his mouth, tears rolling down his cheeks. Sofia stood up, clapping wildly, saying, "That was so emotional. I felt every word." Heidi added, "Your voice has magic. It tells a story even if I don't understand the language." Simon continued, "Music like that, that's what this show is all about. A moment where we stop and realize that true talent knows no borders. You came from the Philippines with nothing but a dream, and tonight, you've just become a new legend." And then, the golden buzzer rang out. A shower of golden confetti rained down. Miguel fell to his knees, overwhelmed. He looked up, crying, smiling, holding his heart as the crowd cheered. His mother was watching from backstage, her hands covering her face, crying uncontrollably. Miguel walked to the judge's table, hugged Simon, and whispered, "Thank you, sir. This is for my father, who taught me that music can heal the soul." Simon nodded and said softly, "He'd be proud of you, son." The video of Miguel's audition went viral overnight. In just 24 hours, it hit 20 million views. Comments flooded in from around the world. Filipinos everywhere shared the clip, saying, "A new Freddie Aguilar is born." But Simon's words, "better than Freddie Aguilar," became a global headline. News outlets from Manila to London to New York began talking about the new legend of the Philippines. Miguel returned home a hero. Crowds waited for him at the airport with banners that read, "Proudly Filipino," and, "Our New Legend." Children sang his song on the streets. Old men played his version of "Anak" on guitars in small cafes. The entire country felt united by his voice. But Miguel didn't let fame change him. He went back to his small town, visited his father's grave, and placed his golden buzzer trophy beside the headstone. He whispered, "We did it, Papa. You told me the world would hear me, and they did." Months later, when Miguel performed again in the semifinals, the world tuned in. This time, he sang an original song he had written about his journey. The lyrics spoke about dreams, sacrifices, and hope. He called it, "Light of Home." The stage design showed images of the Philippines, the rice fields, the sea, the smiling faces of his people. Simon said before the performance, "Miguel, after your audition, we've all been waiting for this moment. Show us who you are." Miguel smiled and began to sing. His voice filled the arena with warmth and fire. The song wasn't just music, it was his story written in melody. As he sang the chorus, the LED screen behind him showed a photo of his father holding a guitar. The audience gasped. The moment was perfect, pure, emotional, unforgettable. When he finished, there was a silence so deep it felt sacred. Then the entire hall stood in unison. Simon wiped his eyes, something he rarely does. He said, "You have done something I didn't think was possible. You've brought the heart of your country to this stage. You are a once-in-a-generation talent, Miguel. You're not just the pride of the Philippines, you are the pride of music." The night Miguel performed in the finals, the entire Philippines stayed awake. Streets were filled with people watching on big screens. Families gathered in living rooms. It was more than a competition, it was a moment of national pride. For his final song, Miguel chose to perform a fusion of "Anak" and "Light of Home." He said, "I want to sing this as a thank you, to my country, to my family, and to everyone who still believes that dreams come true." The stage went dark. A spotlight fell on him. He began with the familiar opening line of "Anak," his voice tender and emotional. Then, halfway through, he transitioned seamlessly into his own song. The crowd roared. The arrangement was genius, a perfect blend of old and new, tradition and passion. When he hit the final note, the entire building shook with applause. Simon stood, clapping harder than anyone. Sophia shouted, "You are the new legend." Howie said, "I just witnessed history." Simon leaned forward and said, "Miguel, I said in your audition that you were better than Freddie Aguilar. Tonight, I take that further. You're not just better, you're something else entirely. You're the future." Miguel couldn't speak. He simply bowed his head as tears streamed down his face. When the winner of that season was announced, it was no surprise. The winner of America's Got Talent is Miguel Santos. Confetti filled the air once again. Miguel's mother ran to the stage. Simon hugged them both. Cameras flashed, people cheered, and a new chapter of Filipino pride was written. In his winner's interview, Miguel said, "This isn't my victory alone. It's for every Filipino who dreams, for every person who believes their voice matters. I am just a boy who loved a song, and that song carried me to the world." Back in Davao, murals of Miguel appeared on walls. Radio stations played his songs. Schools invited him to speak to students about courage and faith. He used his prize money to build a small music academy for underprivileged kids, naming it after his father, the Santos School of Music. Simon Cowell visited the Philippines a year later for a special episode celebrating international AGT winners. When he saw Miguel's school, he smiled and said to the camera, "This is why we do what we do. I've seen thousands of performers, but very few who remind me why I fell in love with music in the first place. Miguel is one of them." Miguel went on to perform at major concerts around the world, London, Dubai, Tokyo, and of course, Manila. Every time he sang, "Anak," the crowd sang with him. And every performance carried that same humble energy, the boy who sang for his father and made his country proud. But Miguel never forgot that one night, when Simon Cowell called him better than Freddie Aguilar. In an interview years later, a reporter asked him, "Do you think you're really better than Freddie?" Miguel smiled softly and said, "No one can be better than the legend who inspired us all. I think Simon meant that every generation creates new stories. I'm just writing mine, the same way Freddie did in his time." The Philippines continues to celebrate Miguel as a symbol of hope and inspiration. His songs remind people that greatness doesn't come from fame or money, it comes from honesty, from singing with your soul. And so, the story of Miguel Santos, the boy from Davao who carried his father's guitar to America's biggest stage, became a living legend. The new voice of the Philippines. The man who made Simon Cowell believe in music again. His journey proves one simple truth: no dream is too far when your heart is filled with purpose. The camera fades out as Miguel stands on stage during his world tour, looking at a sea of lights, thousands of fans holding their phones like stars. He smiles, strums his guitar, and sings, "Anak, may luha sayong mata, puro nagayon, those tears are joy. For every pain, there's a song. And every song can change the world." The crowd joins in, the music swells, the lights dim, and with that final note, a new legend is born. Outro voice, calm, emotional tone. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in dreams. Because somewhere out there, another young soul is holding a guitar, whispering a prayer, and waiting for the world to listen. And remember, legends aren't born famous. They're born fearless.